Jeff, don't forget to make Andy co-host again.
Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the Zoom Test Kitchen. I am Jeff Widgren, your host, and so glad to be here. Glad to have you here. Glad to have some special guests, Andy Carluccio and Sam and Adam. Did I miss anybody, guys, from Zoom? But welcome. As you saw in the invitation or the post on Discord, that two of these out of three, I'm not sure where Adam is, but I know two of them are at Infocom in So yeah, great view, and it's not even a virtual background. That's fantastic. Good stuff. Well, welcome, gentlemen. It's been a little while. I've been off and on. It's been a little busy, and I'll start packing my vehicle right after the Zoom Test Kitchen for an event tomorrow as well. But it's local, so I like the ones I can drive to and sleep in my own bed. So anyways, today is a lot about the newly released ZoomCuts, which is a Mac solution. With that, it's leveraging the shortcut system that's built into Mac as well, which gives us that opportunity to integrate to anything Mac virtually. Those that may just be watching and not seeing the chat, there's some automated postings coming from I think Andy that is telling us what song we're listening to and and how many participants are in the meeting and so forth. So kind of cool stuff. We're going to let them talk about it, but we have till the top of the next hour with these gentlemen, and they've got a hard break there, and always appreciate their time. And Adam, I don't know if you've been here before. Have you been here before?
I have not. But
yeah, welcome. Very good to have you here. Thanks so much for coming here and sharing, and especially I've heard Andy say on multiple occasions that ZoomCuts is your baby, and so thanks for your continued contributions to the industry as well. But Andy and Sam, I'm gonna spotlight all of you guys. There we go.
Well, thank you.
And just hand it over to you, kind of introduce what ZoomCuts is and why we should all be excited about it and what we can do with it and so forth. So take it away.
Thank you so much again for having us. It's fun for us to be here live from InfoComm 2023 in Orlando. We've been exhibiting all week at Zoom, showing how different parts of our product wheel can help all sorts of different customers, from education to broadcast to corporate AV, and it's been a really interesting conference. At our show, we've been showing a variety of demos. We've had our Zoom Production Studio on display, had the ZoomISO 2.1 beta. We've also had ZoomCuts on display, which we're really excited to talk to you about today. ZoomCuts brings Apple shortcuts to Zoom, and Apple shortcuts are available on macOS, but as well as iPadOS and iOS as well. So there's a downloadable new liminal app which you can download for free called ZoomCuts, which allows you to have over 40 app intents, different actions that you can do and interface with Zoom. We also have in our normal Zoom client, the Zoom app that you would download on your phone or your iPad. We also have some app intents enabled there, so you can go into your Shortcuts app. We're showing that here at the show. We've got an iPad set up in split screen view with Zoom on one side and Shortcuts on the other side, explaining that value proposition. We've also got it tied out to a Stream Deck and have a couple of button presses to do basic actions in Zoom, a whole variety of different things that we can do. But just to give you a little bit of a bigger picture about what we're doing here, we started out, the first liminal app that we made actually a little over 3 years ago now, was ZoomOSC. And the idea behind ZoomOSC was to be able to integrate different computer solutions, hardware devices, software devices, media servers, and allow them to talk to Zoom and get data from Zoom. And with ZoomCuts, we're excited to continue in that legacy and now bring something into more of a consumer-friendly framework, specifically Apple Shortcuts framework. This allows us to build inter-app workflows. We can have different things on our system talking to each other and talking to Zoom as part of that family. We have the ability to build macros for things that, maybe we're doing a bunch of common meeting actions, like setting up meeting settings. How many times, every time you start a call, you go in and say, all right, have I checked all the things in the green shield? Have I set up the waiting room? Did I make my 3 breakout rooms and name them all appropriate? Did I open those rooms? That can all be one button press away now with the shortcut that repeats that action. And then also building more ergonomic entry points into Zoom. Shortcuts can be triggered by all sorts of different frameworks, including the top menu bar on the Mac, using Siri. You can use the dock. You can use your Apple Watch. You can do all sorts of interesting things to be able to activate shortcuts. And so now Zoom can have all sorts of different entry points and triggers from different parts of the system. What I'd like to do next is pass it over to Sam, get his perspective on it. I know a lot of you are, event producers, power users. So I want to give Sam an opportunity to give that side of the equation and why it's valuable to you. So I'm going to pass off the mic and let Sam share a couple thoughts.
And we will try to not be too bad with the mic first. But I wanted to come on and kind of take a second to share a little bit about my story with ZoomCuts. As Annie and his team have been working on it for a long time, been telling us about it, telling us, hey, we got this new kind of thing coming, and trying to figure out what it meant to me and my team, what it meant to us in the varying user personas that we have. So we think through those user personas. The first one is going to be the consumer-friendly one. It's going to be the person who doesn't use OSC, doesn't use another controller automation system, and needs to use these things. And it's speed of use of like even these simple buttons where it's just raise my hand or toggle hand up and down, emoji, stuff like that, that are very quick and easy to build in the Apple Shortcuts framework. Mute, unmute, toggle video, that are just super quick. Even if you don't know anything about OSC, what is MIDI, are all these things, it's the Apple UI, and it's great at that. Now, at the same time, those are things that already exist in OSC. And there's definitely a lot of things. There are a couple things that exist only in Shortcuts, but then there are things, obviously, that exist in OSC, as Shortcuts is on version 1 we just launched, versus ZoomOSC, which has been out there and been adding and adding and adding. And that's where a lot of the power users come in. Those of you that are already familiar with ZoomOSC, that already have your Stream Deck and BitFocus Companion built out and are doing the things you're doing there. And a lot of it would be pretty easy to look at it and immediately kind of think of it only as that Zoom controller option and completely write it off. And honestly, I had done that for a little bit too long here, where I knew it had an application. I knew like specifically my event consulting team was going to be using it, and that Jonathan was going to be building out a set of shortcuts for them to use on their Stream Decks to easier manage their regular native Zoom calls day to day, but I wasn't sure where it really fit in with my specialists. And that's where, as we've been building the different demos that we've been showing here on the show floor, it really started to open my eyes to some of the possibilities. And again, like those two of those simple ones that we've been doing, we've been firing the one where it's sending what the current song is in music. So it's looking into the music app, finding the song, and then sending that as a chat. Okay, that's not actually that useful. Like, am I going to use that in a day-to-day sense? But you start realizing that this thing can reach across apps and pull data out. And that's not just the music app. That's not just Apple apps. There's a whole slew of different apps across the OS that it can get to and get data in. I think one of my favorite ones so far is going to be one that we kind of built up together for the demo here, and that's this meeting participant one. So you guys saw up earlier a chat that showed like, hey, at this time, there's this many people in the meeting. But if we show it again, and actually Andy will, I'll let Andy show you later, he'll share screen and show it. But we were running out on the iPad where it was doing a live log, and it's writing it into the Notes app. So it's taking Zoom saying, how many people are in my meeting at this time? A new speaker just took the stage. How many people were here at the top of their session? How many people were here 5 minutes in? How many people were here at the end of the session? That all exists in the dashboard. I can see that with the attendee reports out of a webinar, but the ability, like, I then have to go and data process that off of everyone's join and leave times. And it could be complex to try to go find that data. Whereas this could be something that I have a moderator who's, think of it as if they were just writing down the number, but they just have an automated action they're doing where they pop this button, writes that to Notes, and then it switches back to the Zoom app. And it's very, very cool. Another one he's going to show you later is going to be introductions, which is this huge, long chain of automations that you can really start tying together in interesting ways. And I would definitely encourage everybody to take a look at this, start playing around with it, take some of the existing ones, but more so try to come up with that interesting concept, that interesting workflow that you want to solve, and see the neat ways it does it, with its ability to do prompts and bring up different dialogues that you can click through that are using data and driving them out. Building some of these things out in Companion on a Stream Deck, or even if I'm chaining it with Isadora, these are massively complex interfaces that would take you a good bit of time to do, that are dead simple, seriously, 10 minutes, and you're done. With that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to Andy, but it was great seeing you guys. I'm going to go back over to my booth. Great to be here in the kitchen.
Thanks, Sam.
Just to sort of double click on one of those points that Sam was making there at the end, there are a couple of things that are very unique about the Shortcuts ecosystem. And one of those things is the deliverability of automation to other people. This is something Apple has done a really good job crafting what that experience looks like. Previously, with things like ZoomOSC, Isadora, and Companion, we could build that all up for ourselves and build really good operator interfaces for ourselves. But to be able to hand that off to a client who's non-technical was a challenge, right? We don't have to install a bunch of additional software on their systems and tie that together, figure out what network ports we can use and all that kind of stuff. With Shortcuts, it's a click away. I can share through iCloud a direct link that installs a shortcut onto their system, and we can be the ones who are learning the app and are the power users, and we can take that knowledge, encapsulate it into a shortcut that's just a button press for an end user. And that's a really powerful design paradigm for automation inside of Zoom. we've all looked at the keyboard shortcuts, and I think we all want more in certain areas. And we want things that are reactive to data. We want to be able to select people who have their hand raised and spotlight all of them. That's never going to be a keyboard shortcut away, right? That's a dynamic relationship between data happening in the meeting and things that are being exported elsewhere. But with shortcuts, we can do all of that. The best thing for me, though, about it is that for all the different shortcuts that I built with Adam, and I'm going to go to him in a second here, but I've spent probably 2 or 3 minutes designing each shortcut that we've worked on. The Shortcuts app is incredibly well designed. It is so easy to just start dragging things in, figuring out what you can do, and building workflows. And again, this interactive dialogue, import questions, right? I could have a shortcut that asks me information and then saves it into the shortcut automatically when I send it to somebody else. There's all sorts of things built around the Shortcuts ecosystem. And we're so excited that we're bringing Zoom into that automation environment. There's already a lot of users there. There's already a lot of thought that's gone into that. And I'm super excited that Zoom's going to be able to play in that playground. So with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Adam and to give credit where credit's due. This is Adam's baby. He has been the one who came into Zoom and said, we got to do this. He's a Shortcuts power user. He's got a lot of industry experience about it. And he has worked day and night, for well over a year trying to figure out how this is going to happen. And we're so excited that not only do we have this in our Liminal app, we've also been able to bring it into core Zoom on iOS and iPadOS. So with that, I just want to say huge thanks to Adam, huge shout out to Adam, and I'll let you take it from here.
All right. Thank you for that great introduction, Andy. I think that the first thing is he's given a couple of examples. So what I want to do now is share my screen and show some examples from simple to complicated. So I'm going to share my screen and screen. Let me try this again. I'm having a little difficulty sharing my screen.
We're going to have to make Adam a co-host in order to share a screen. Yeah.
Let me also make sure my system settings are set properly. Okay, one moment while I do this. Okay, let's try this again. Share my screen. Okay, I'm having a little problem sharing my screen, but I will show you this on the Stream Deck here. So I've created a bunch of shortcuts that I've just attached to the Stream Deck. So some simple ones is like toggle my audio, which will mute and unmute me, and I can turn off my video like this. But what I want to do now is also rename myself. So I have a little button here that says rename. And what this is doing is running a shortcut that displays a menu. And if you can see, my name is now changing in the Zoom meeting. So I can push this again, and I'll get a menu appearing on my Mac, and I can just click a button, and now my name is changing. So just say you attend a lot of different meetings from day to day, your name changes, your title changes. You can just use this very quickly to configure that. Again, I have a shortcut that just displays a list of titles, and I just choose the title, and there you go. Changes my name. Now we have Andy asked earlier today, like how many people have their video enabled. So I'm going to run the shortcut that I just ran, and there's 10 participants in this meeting who have their video enabled. We've written a shortcut called introductions, which I will run right now. And what it's going to do, it's going to give me a prompt to say, like, how many seconds do you want each participant to introduce themselves? So we have 10 people. I'm actually going to limit it to the 5 random people in this meeting. So it'll take about a minute to run the shortcut. And what it's going to do, assuming I am the host, which I am, it's going to spotlight 5 random people, each one individually, giving them 10 seconds to introduce themselves. And it's going to notify the person who's up next that they're going to come on within maybe like 2 seconds. So I'm going to run this shortcut. And all I'm doing is I run the shortcut, I enter how many seconds these people need to talk, and then I hit done, and here we go.
Hey, I'm Jeff, and this is a super cool shortcut. Can't beat it. I got a chat message that says I'm up next, and here I am. So who's coming up next? There you are.
Hey there, I'm Betsy Coyne. I am so grateful to be here. I am going to be a power user of shortcuts because I teach this to others who fill right into this audience. So thank you.
And it's me. As you can see, I am not doing anything with the shortcut. I'm not clicking any buttons. I'm not spotlighting people. I'm not unspotlighting people. Everything's happening automatically. And now the next person will be coming up next.
It looks like it's me, again, live from Infocom. So I got a notification saying you're coming up next. And I have a couple seconds here to introduce myself to everybody. Again, nobody's doing anything or running anything. And the person who's running this didn't even have to make the shortcut in the first place, which is super cool. It could just be something that we hand off to our moderators.
I'm Ray Franklin. I'm a presentation coach in live and virtual events. This is pretty cool.
Okay, and that was our group.
Yeah, so now at the end of the shortcut, it just removes all the spotlights. And depending on if you're like in speaker view or gallery view, you return to the view that you're currently in.
Hey, Adam, was that really unbiased?
It was a random selection of the 10 people. So I don't know how it chose Jeff and Andy and myself, but Cosmic, maybe next time if I ran this, you'd be the lucky winner. And speaking of lucky winner, there's another shortcut that I have here. And I wish I could share my screen and show you what this is.
I can go into the back end of introductions afterwards while you work on that. We can step through it if you just want to run them now. People get the experience, and then I'll show how it's made while you reset yourself for sharing.
Another shortcut is called random drawing. And so what it does is it displays a menu and says, are you in a webinar or a meeting? And if you're in a webinar, do you want to send the random drawing to the panelists or the webinar attendees? So the idea is that, you're at the end of the meeting, you want to choose a lucky winner from the people who have attended your meeting or webinar and give them like a prize. So all the shortcut does is it selects from the list of meeting participants. In this case, we're in a meeting. I click done, and then it's going to send to the chat message, thank you for attending the Zoom Test Kitchen. Picking lucky winner in 3, 2, 1. It happened to chose me.
Now talk about bias, Cosmic.
Yeah.
So let's see if this is truly random. I'm going to run it again. Meeting participants. And it's 3, 2, 1, and it chose me again. So let's see if it truly is random. So this is where you have to, when you're writing a shortcut, you want to make sure that it actually truly is random. So I'm looking through here, and it says meeting type webinar, limit of 1, and it is random. So let me try running that again. Hopefully this will really choose a random.
As long as you don't choose Andy.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's obviously having a
one.
problem choosing. Okay, I think I know why. We have to choose. We sort by random, and then we chose a random person from the list. So making a shortcut is like a little bit like programming, but it's a lot easier. I think of shortcuts as like you have a collection of pieces and you put them together like Lego bricks. So I just added one line to this that says get a random item from the list of participants. So let's run it again. Meeting participants. And for those of you who can't see in the chat, it's picking the lucky winner, 3, 2, 1. And this time it chose me again. So I need to figure out what's happening here. I see what I did wrong. I was selecting it from the list of webinar participants, which was not the case because we're in a meeting. So I'm going to run this again, and I guarantee you that this will work. So this is why you should always test your shortcuts before you put them into production. So there we go. Joe Phillips via Poly P21. And I'm going to run it again just to show you that it didn't, I wasn't just manually.
That's why we
putting
have the
someone
Zoom
there.
Test Kitchen so that we can test things.
Yeah,
Yes,
there we go.
Robert 1. So as you can see, one line fix, one action fix to make the random drawing work. Now, here's another one that I think people who use Zoom might frequently use. So with Zoom, you can spotlight people, but you can't change the order of the spotlight. So we have an action called ordered spotlight, and it's very simple. The first thing it does is it removes all the existing spotlights. And then number 2 is that there's a list. And you enter the list up to 9 people, because Zoom can spotlight up to 9 people, of the participants that you want to have spotlit. So I'm looking at the list of people here. I'm gonna put Jeff in the number 1 position, and then I'm gonna put myself in number 2 position, and let's put Mike in the number 3 position. So there's just 3 people that I'm gonna have spotlight, but they're gonna be in that particular order. Okay, so let me put Mike's name, Mike Lada. Okay, and now I'm gonna run this shortcut, and we can have all these shortcuts available on the liminal site after this, Andy, so we can upload those so you can test them yourselves. So I'm gonna run this, and it's gonna go through and spotlight Jeff first, then it's gonna spotlight me, and it's gonna spotlight Mike in that particular order. Now, if I wanted to change the order and have, let's say, Mike first, and then let's see, Jeff next, and then me last, all I have to do is rearrange the order of the people in the list. And in shortcuts, there's a list action. You can just add people, and then you can drag and drop. So now when I run this shortcut, again, no hands here, it's gonna spotlight Mike, and then it's gonna spotlight Jeff, and it's gonna spotlight me in that exactly in that order. Okay, and then you're done. So you can see how when you're running a show and you want a particular person to be like spotlight, let's say you're having a show where your CEO is talking, you always want them in the first position, right? Now you have a way to put them in that position, and so it's not that they're randomly ordered. Or if you actually happen to spotlight like 4 people and the CEO was like in the 4th position, now you can have them up in the 1st position. All right.
So with that, Adam, why don't I walk through a little bit of how the sausage is made on the back end? What does it actually look like to build a shortcut? I'll walk through some of the example shortcuts that we have on the site. I'll let you restart, do whatever you got to do to be able to share so that we can step through some of your examples as well. So I'll jump into a content share here, and we'll take a look at some of that stuff. And again, what's beautiful about this is that all we need is, again, on an iPad, all we need is Zoom installed and iOS version 16 or later. On the Mac, we have the ZoomCuts app, and then Shortcuts is already part of the operating system. No external tools required. And I'll show you the different entry points that you can use to get this built. But like, you can break it out to a Stream Deck if you really want to, but you don't have to, right? And that was one of the things with ZoomOSC. You always needed that other controller, that other program to talk to ZoomOSC. In this case, that's Shortcuts, which is part of the operating system already. There's nothing special that you have to do. Let me show you my meeting counter shortcut here. I'm going to double click on it in the Shortcuts app. It finds all the participants in the meetings and it counts them up. Then it gets my current date and I create a text compose. And I'm going to build this from scratch in a second so you can see kind of how this looks, but I want to start with the 50-foot view where we're ending up with. I compose a message with 2 variables in it, the date and the count, send that to everyone in the chat, and then I also send it to my notes app. So if I run this shortcut again, you'll see it just runs from top to bottom. It finds the participants, counts them up, and then as you just saw, it updated my notes app down here, and it said at 3:23, there were 22 participants in the meeting. So step by step, just runs through that whole automation stack. Let's build something from scratch together so you can get a sense of how that looks. I'm gonna hit the plus button in the Shortcuts app. It's gonna create a new shortcut. When you have ZoomCuts installed on your computer, at the bottom here, because Zoom is the letter Z and that's probably the last thing you have installed, there's ZoomCuts, the app. In here, you're gonna find over 40 different app intents. And again, these are not individual actions, these are collections of actions that can take place. So if you think about all the different things you can do with these 40 top level things and all the things that live inside of them, there's actually so much more that can take place underneath the hood. So let's say I want to build an example where I'm going to send the count just to the meeting chat in this case. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the participants. Find participants is going to be something you're going to use very often. It's a way of getting the list of people in the meeting. So it's a way of just like asking ZoomCuts, hey, who's here? One of the things that you can do with the find participants action is you can add what we call filters. And filters are a way of saying, I want to know everybody's here, but I want to know something about them. I want to filter them by a certain property. So in this example, let's get a count of everybody who has video on. Do it a little differently this time. So I'm going to add a filter. And this time I'm going to say, look at their video property. So I want to say, is video enabled? So it's going to give me a count. It's going to be a list of everybody whose video is enabled. Now I just want to count that up. So I'm literally going to type count. And this is one of the basic scripting actions. It's part of every shortcut install. I'm going to drag that in. Nothing I need to do. It automatically knows I want to count the number of people who are in the participants list and save that as a variable. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a message. So I'm going to grab text and I'm going to write, there are currently count, boom, there's my count, people in the meeting with video on. I'll make that exclamation point. Last thing I'm going to do is I want to send that to the chat. So I'm going to search for send chat. I'm going to grab in meeting chat and I'm going to say send text to everyone. I'm going to run this action. And inside of our chat, if I can scroll to the bottom, we have currently 11 people with video on. So again, in just a couple minutes, we threw together an automation that involves chat, counting participants, making custom messages, and sending that out to everybody. So it's a really easy drag and drop environment to build things together. And as you learn shortcuts, you learn some of the syntax and the thinking behind it. But any programmer on this call will tell you that that is a lot simpler than writing a piece of software from scratch that does something like that with our SDKs.
For
so
sure.
again,
So Andy,
yeah, so,
if you
yeah.
can you open up the rename myself, because that was one that I showed earlier.
Sure.
So you can see how right here I ran the shortcut and it showed a list of names that I had defined already in the list. So go ahead and run the shortcut.
Yeah.
You don't have to choose one of them.
So I'm going to hit allow. This is the first time you run a shortcut that wants to talk to ZoomCuts, you're going to hit allow. You don't have to do this every time, just the first time you run the shortcut. So I'm going to hit allow.
Right. And so now you get to select from the list of names. Now I had modified the shortcut to have my name and the series of appropriate titles, but Andy could choose any one of those and then his Zoom name would change in this meeting. You don't have to do that right now. I just want to show you what that shortcut looked like that I had run. Let's go over to the introduction shortcut and I'll just walk you through how that one works. So this is a much more complicated one. And I had made one change to the shortcut where I only chose from 5 people. So, but you can see the first thing that it's going to ask you is the number of people you want to give each participant to talk. So that's the ask for number. How many seconds do you want each participant to introduce themselves? And then the next action I do is I remove all existing spotlights. Then I set the last participant variable to nothing because the last participant is the one I believe I'm going to send the message to. Actually, that may be the next person. I'm going to send a message to a participant saying they're coming up next. But what I do here is I do a find participant and I only get the ones who have the video enabled. So this is similar to what Andy did. I added a filter, is video enabled. And then I repeat with each participant. And if I'm at the end of the count, like the number of participants we want to limit to, like 5, I'll exit. Otherwise, I'm going to make sure that they really have their video enabled. This is a quick loop just to make sure in case they actually turned it off. I send them a notification to say, hey, start your video. You're going to be spotlit. And then I send a chat message to that participant, say, hey, you're coming up next. And I wait a few seconds and then I turn the spotlight on for the active participant. And I turn the spotlight off for the last participant. So remember, the first person is nobody because there's only the first participant. So I don't spotlight the last participant, but I do set the participants I just spotlight as the last participant. So the next time this loop comes along, I turn off the spotlight. That's why when you saw 2 people on screen, say you saw Jeff, then you saw Betsy, then Jeff disappeared. So that's what happened when we turned the spotlight off for the last participant. And then we wait and give the person time to talk. And at the very end, after it's iterated through all the participants that we wanted to spotlight, we remove all the spotlights. So you can see it's a somewhat of a complicated shortcut, but once you have it written out, it's just one button push to automate something that would ordinarily take a lot of time, or there'd be a lot of wasted time when the person who spotlight would say, oh, I'm going to choose this person next to talk.
Right. And again, it's the person who runs it doesn't have to build it. I can right click on this shortcut and I can go to share. And then I have all these different methods of sharing that Apple supports. I can also get a direct link to iCloud if I was signed in. I'd get a URL they can use and directly import. That's how, by the way, on our website here for ZoomCuts, you can see at the bottom where the examples are. That's what these are. So I can click on Get Shortcut. It takes me to iCloud and it says Get Shortcut, and they'll put it right in my Shortcuts app. So if you want to get started and look at some of these, you don't want to build them from scratch, you can download a half dozen of them from our website and take a look at them there. And again, they range. Like, here's a really simple one, like send the heart emoji, right? Like, they don't have to be super complicated actions, but we wanted to show you that everything from like the simple and repeated things that you need to do all the way up to full almost programs, if you will, that you want to have run inside of Zoom with easy drag and drop configuration. You can set all of that stuff up. It's super exciting. One last thing I want to show before we maybe open it up for some questions is how to actually trigger shortcuts. There's a lot of ways that you can do it, and I didn't know about these in the beginning, and I think they're super powerful. So let's say I want to have a more ergonomic entry point to send the heart emoji. It's a trivial example, but I think you can imagine how this could be used in those situations. All I have to do if I want this in my top menu bar is drag it over to menu. And now you see I have this shortcuts item in my top bar here on my Mac, and I can click it there. And then once I've allowed this once, it sets the heart emoji in my chat or in my participant tile. So we can have a quick, easy way from the menu bar to be able to trigger that and run that from the top. I can also right click on this and I can say add to dock. So now at the bottom of my computer, you see the heart emoji down here. And if I'd rather run this from my dock, I can trigger this just by pressing on it here. And now the shortcuts run here as well. Now, again, with the heart emoji, it's a little trivial, but imagine if this was join a meeting, right? And so instead of, just sending this emoji here, I can make a new shortcut. I can call it join my meetings. And then all I have to do is look for the join meeting action, drag that into my area, and maybe I'll get something with a list so I can predefine some of these things. Or actually, we'll start simple. We'll just let it do one meeting at a time for shortcut. I can type in the meeting ID and I can hit show more here and I can add passcode to this and display name. So I could do that, or I could take the URL if I just want to paste the URL to join. But let's say I want to make one that's for the Zoom Test Kitchen. So instead of maybe join my meetings, this will be join Zoom Test Kitchen. And then I've got the information for the kitchen here. So I can grab that. I'm going to just copy that guy, paste that as my meeting ID, and then I'll take the passcode, and then I'll set my display name. All right, so now I've got that. And this is now going to be a repeatable way for me to be able to get into the Zoom Test Kitchen, because again, I can set this, put it in my menu bar. Now I'm one menu bar click away from joining Zoom Test Kitchen. So again, and that can be, entered from up here, but if I'm on mobile, for example, I can put this in a widget. So I can tie this out to, the widget on my home screen and have one click away to get my iPad, for example, in a Zoom Test Kitchen every Friday, right? So again, lots of different entry points. You can run these from Siri, you can run these from scripts if you want to get on the more powerful side. If you use things like QLab, you can run them from there as well. So there's a whole lot of different things that you can do, and a lot of different entry points. So again, those three motifs that we talk about are, automating common actions with macros, creating inter-app workflows, go to the music app, get the song name, paste that in the chat, right? Talk to the notes app, put data there, and then finally building more ergonomic entry points into Zoom. Being able to trigger stuff from the menu bar, the dock, or Siri, or all sorts of different ways of doing it. That's a lot. So with all that said, Jeff, let me hand it back to you, and you can tell us where you'd like to go next.
Sure. I'm going to play host and privilege, I guess, for a second and ask, can a shortcut call a shortcut? So what made me think of that is, join meeting. We'll have very specific meeting information, but I already have a shortcut that gives me my common 8 names that I might want to choose from going into that meeting. And so I'd like to call the name and the reason is, well, you could build it into the join meeting, but I also want to leave that change my name shortcut kind of independent if I ever need to call it when I'm within any meeting at any given time, right?
That's right. So yeah, shortcuts can call shortcuts. Adam, did you want to expand more on that?
Yeah, shortcuts can run other shortcuts. So there's an action called run shortcut, and you just specify the shortcut to run. So this is a way if you have like building blocks of shortcuts, you can just call them from other shortcuts. And in fact, shortcuts can take input from other shortcuts. So you could create a shortcut that says, get me the input, and you can type in like some input like a person's name or a number, and then that variable will be available in the shortcut that's run. So you can use that to further customize your workflows.
Now, again, though, Jeff, you to do what you're saying, we're like, what I'm imagining is you want to run the shortcut and then be prompted to say, hey, what meeting do you want to actually join, and what parameters you want to do that with? There's perhaps a more efficient way to do that, which is this concept of a list. So you can have a pop-up that you can build into the shortcut that can actually ask you a question in the middle of the execution of the shortcut. You can display the different meetings that you've programmed in and say, hey, which one of these were you looking for? You can then click on that and hit join and come in that way as well. So you don't have to, you can bring in live input into the shortcuts while they're executing by giving the user a pop-up that says, hey, what would you like to do in this situation? That's how that rename shortcut worked, for example, where it showed me all the different names that I've got. And I was able to pick one. I could do the same thing with meeting IDs. I could do the same thing. I could tie them together. I could say join, Zoom Test Kitchen as Jeff Widgren, join it as streamer, join it, you could build different combinations of actions. You could do all that stuff as well.
Good stuff. Hey, can we review for everybody, and maybe I'll just put myself on the hot seat on the base requirements for, hey, I want to take advantage of ZoomCuts on an iOS device. And so with that, ZoomCuts is not an app that you have to put on an iOS device. Shortcuts already exist within the Mac ecosystem, right? And or the Apple ecosystem. The way that the way that Apple or the iPad knows that ZoomCuts is available within the Shortcuts app is having right now the latest Zoom client installed. But
That's right.
remind us what version that is right now, and then moving forward.
Should be
Yeah, so you
5.14.10 or later. So I think we're on like 11 now, but yeah, it should be 5.14.10 or later on iOS and iPadOS.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
iOS, iPadOS 16 and higher.
Oh yeah, the operating system on the phone needs to be iOS 16, and then the Zoom client on that phone needs to be 5.14.10 or later.
Okay, perfect. All right, and so then when you open Shortcuts, you go to that Apps tab. You can scroll down, and you'll see ZoomCuts there and available. Very good. So then on the Mac itself, that is an application that
That's right.
needs to get downloaded from the Liminal website. I put I put the URL in the chat window a little while ago. Once that's downloaded, then the Shortcuts app on the Mac. Now the Mac OS has to be Ventura or newer, right?
13.3 specifically or later. So you want to be 13.3, which is Ventura plus a little bit, or 13.4, which is what we're currently on, or later if you run, if you're, not that I recommend, but if you're running like the Sonoma technical preview and the future versions of Mac OS, it'll be compatible with that as well. But yeah, 13.3 or later.
Okay. So download the app. Now also, when you download ZoomCuts, you are downloading a Zoom client.
That's
and you can do what I've been doing with ZoomOSC, and many of us have, right, is kind of have two systems. We're hosting on this system. The one to our side is launching the ZoomOSC Zoom client and giving us that access. There's nothing saying that we can't or shouldn't do that. The same with ZoomCuts, but fact is you can be the host on the ZoomCuts client, start your meeting and the whole bit, right? I think would it be fair to say, and I'm going to say this on behalf of Betsy in particular, because I think she has some more dependencies, which is Zoom's intention of having the calendar and the inbox and so forth. I'm guessing, I haven't really looked really close, but the Zoom native client, which really has, the Zoom One presentation, if you will, of all the different products and solutions, is not exactly what you get in the ZoomCuts client, which comes from the SDK, right?
That's right. That's right. And to speak a little bit to what's going on here and the strategy behind why things are set up the way they are, ZoomCuts on macOS is a separate app because it is a technical preview for power users about what we hope to bring to the macOS client in the future. So this is an opportunity for us to engage with the community early and say, look, this is what we're thinking about. This is how we'd like it to be structured. What kind of shortcuts are you going to be able to make with this? And what things are we missing? What things can we do better so that when we do introduce it to macOS, that we've considered that feedback as well as the additional requirements the macOS client has. We know that on macOS, that's really a power user environment for shortcuts. There's a lot more things that you can do with the full Shortcuts app and all the different things that other apps on that system might be optimized for. Might be more of a power user environment. So we wanted to get early and we wanted to sit down and say, all right, let's come to the table and talk about this. And there's other things that we have planned for the ZoomCuts app in the future that it's not to say that we are going to retire the ZoomCuts app when we introduce app intents into the macOS client, but rather our intention here is to give you guys an early look and then to be able to do things that serve power users with a dedicated client. One of the things, Jeff, that I would think a little bit differently about with ZoomCuts as compared to ZoomOSC and ZoomISO, I think you nailed it. With ZoomOSC and ZoomISO, you're typically going to double join. You're typically going to join the meeting through the normal Zoom desktop client, and then you're going to have like your producer client join on the side, and that's going to be the ZoomOSC client. They're going to be in there twice, right? One for production, one for personal contribution. One of the things that we've thought about differently with the design of ZoomCuts, I think you can see this right from the moment you first launch it, is we've actually built it to be a viable way of being your primary meeting client. So depending on what features of Zoom you use, like you said, all the Zoom One stuff, team chat, there's other components there, that's going to be in the normal Zoom client. But for those who are using Zoom perhaps in more of a focused way, where it's primarily about joining and participating within meetings and being within that scope, we try to make it ergonomic to the point where you could run shortcuts like join the meeting. You could run shortcuts like, being able to optimize your personal contribution, set display names and things like that. And actually could be a benefit to you to have a more seamless experience interacting with Zoom using this as the primary client for just personal participation. Again, event production, I think it's a good idea to have two clients in the meeting anyway. Like even if it was two desktop clients, I might sign in with a different device, even if I wasn't using any production tools, just to have another computer available to me. But all that being said, I think that we have the intention, more so than we've had with ZoomOSC and ZoomISO in the past, that this may be the one client that you're joining with to be able to get access to some of these other things. And the benefits of these shortcuts actually reflect upon the personal user versus the production user. There's just a little bit of a different angle to that, something to think about. Of course, on iOS and iPadOS, you don't have to make the choice. It's all one client. It's all in there. You don't have to think about it as much. But in this environment, that could be something to think about, something that could be helpful for you.
Yeah, I can easily see my primary host on my PC like it is, and an iPad being the ideal kind of control center, the ZoomCuts control center, because I'm not giving up ZoomOSC or ISO, in my life. And there's certainly things, something Shortcuts doesn't do is it doesn't poll the meeting until you tell it to poll the meeting for whatever, you're looking for, right? Participants, participant counts, and so forth. So it's not listening. It's not a listener. And therefore it's not an auto-populator without at least you being the instigator or executor of the shortcut itself. Like ZoomOSC will pull the data out and populate my buttons on my Stream Deck of the names and so forth, right? So
right.
That's where I see a delineation. Yeah. So good stuff.
Yeah. So
well,
ZoomOSC has this full bidirectional control interface ecosystem where there's callback. Somebody turns their video on, you get an active notification to your app that's happened. With ZoomCuts, it's more about reaching in and looking at the properties and getting data back out. It's not to say it's not bidirectional. You can get the participant list, you can get the information, but you have to reach in and get it. It's not a callback. It's not proactively coming back to the shortcut and doing things the way it's set up right now, put it like that. But that is an important differentiator. You're not going to build a Stream Deck with the color of the participants and the names automatically populating on the keys and all that other stuff that you do with Companion. That's not what this is for. This is for that more focused one-way automation, macros, sequence of actions, and it can do a lot of automation within that flow, but it's a button press that triggers something and then that thing runs, and maybe it prompts you, maybe it asks for input, but it's not this bidirectional control surface optimized experience.
Yeah. So if I went and tried to, let's say, mimic a Stream Deck with OSC to a degree, I could create a single shortcut that prompts me for which user, right? So it gives me that list of the users currently in the meeting. I'm a freelancer. I know that there's going to be 3 primary speakers in here. So I can create 3 instances of that exact same shortcut. It prompts me, I say speaker 1. This one prompts me, I say speaker 2. This one prompts me, and I say speaker 3. Now it has the data that it needs, right? And so now I have 3 individual buttons that instantly spotlight my known ahead of time speakers for this particular event. Is that a fair approach on that? If you had that data, you know who's who.
Yeah, I would think about it like this. I mean, you definitely, I think you could set variables from a shortcut that put in the name of the participants into those shortcuts and trigger them that way. I would argue though that this is a place where an interactive dialogue might be a better choice from the design of how I'd put this together. So I'd rather, perhaps it's, again, there's that repeatability, that single button press. But I don't know that I would want a shortcut to modify a shortcut, but let me show you how I might go about solving that problem. We'll take it all the way out to the Stream Deck so you can see how to actually get a shortcut onto your Stream Deck. So let's build Jeff's shortcut here. We're going to say spotlight participants. All right, and now what I'm going to do in here. Let's
Actually,
first start
Andy,
with
I have the shortcut already created. You want me to share
Oh
my
yeah,
screen? I can do that
let's
now.
do that.
Okay. So let's see if this works. Share screen. Okay. Okay, so you can see my the shortcut I created, which is Spotlight Raised Hand Participants. And this is what I call a controller because I'm going to repeat it several times. So I choose from the menu, do I want to remove all spotlights or select a participant to spotlight? And you see remove all spotlights just removes all spotlights. Select participants to spotlight will look for anyone who has their hand raised and then allow me to choose from that participant list. Okay. And right now I can just spotlight one person at a time. So again, you're doing a Q&A. You have a list of people who have raised their hands. And you just want to spotlight them one at a time. So if we run this shortcut, and let's actually have a couple people raise their hands.
Raise your digital hand, yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm going to run this, and you're going to see what's going to happen is I'm going to say remove all spotlights or select participants to spotlight. I'm going to say select participants to spotlight, and it's going to show me these people have their hands raised. So I'm going to choose someone that I haven't chose before. Let's choose John. And
greetings from beautiful Monterey.
Now John is spotlit. Now I also lower his hand so he doesn't show up in the list again. And because I'm repeating this shortcut 20 times, it just displays the menu again. So I don't have to actually click it again to spotlight the next person. I can just say select participant spotlight. It'll show me a list of people, and now we'll go to Dave. It's going to remove all spotlights, turn on the spotlight for Dave, and then lower his hand, and then bring up the dialog box again. And when I'm all done, I can just say remove all spotlights and then exit, and then that will exit the shortcut. Now, if I happen to do this 20 times, then the shortcut kind of will end, and then I would just have to run it again. There's no concept of a while loop in shortcuts, so you have to do these kind of like hacks to like repeat it 20 times to simulate a while loop. Now, to get it onto the Stream Deck, let me show you how easy this is. So I'm going to bring up my Stream Deck control, and so this Stream Deck looks exactly like the Stream Deck that I have right here. I don't know if you can see it right there. And I'm going to click on this button here, and I'm going to type in shortcuts. There's a plugin for the Stream Deck, a third-party plugin. So I'm going to say launch shortcut. I'm going to put that there, and I'll call this Spotlight Raised Hand. And then I'm going to choose which shortcut I want to run. So scroll down my list. A lot of shortcuts here that I have to wade through. Spotlight Raised Hand Participant. Okay. And I can assign like a graphic to it if I wanted to. I don't have one handy at the moment. And I would do like that. And let me make the text a little easier to read. Okay. So now when I push this button on my Stream Deck, you'll see what happens. I'm going to push this button. And you see the dialog box just appeared. So again, I can go to select participants to spotlight. It'll choose me. Actually, no one has their hands raised right now, so it just returns back to the screen. But someone just raised their hand. So I can do this. Robert, done. And now Robert should be spotlit right now.
Brilliant.
Okay, and I'll just remove all spotlights and go back to there. So you can see how easily you can create the shortcut and then add it to your Stream Deck very, very, very easily.
Good stuff. Thank you, Adam. Hey, we are down to about 10 or 11 minutes, being respectful to your time. So I'll invite those. I can't right now scroll up on the chat itself, but I know there were questions there. So feel free to raise your digital hand to ask questions, and we'll start getting through them. So David Paskin.
Hey, first of all, I apologize that I was late. It doesn't matter. It's really good to see you guys. I have two questions, if that's okay. The first is what you just showed us, clicking the Stream Deck, choosing from, select a participant, choosing the person's name. That feels like 3 clicks, as opposed to if I find them in the participant list, I click on more and spotlight. That's 2 clicks. So I guess what I'm wondering is, where is I'm sure that was only one example, but is part of the goal here to simplify that process? And then the second question is, and again, forgive me if you already talked about this. Could you talk a little bit about this and ZoomOSC? Because I'm really struggling to find out why I want to use this, because I'm so in love with ZoomOSC. I want to love both. But
let me start with the second part. We did speak for about maybe the first 15 minutes or so about that difference between the two of them. It's all good. I definitely would recommend you check it out, because I had Sam come on and share from his perspective as a ZoomOSC power user, why is his team starting to use this? I'll break it down to a couple of key things. Number one, it's the ability to export a shortcut and share it with somebody who's non-technical. So I, as a designer, can build automations that just get imported into somebody else's machine. They don't have to install ZoomOSC and configure their network ports and learn Companion and all that stuff. I can have the convenience of a Stream Deck without having to learn the whole Companion thing. I remember the David Paskin of a year ago when I first got to sit down with you and talked about Companion and the ZoomOSC integration. That's a massive learning curve. Now, you've put in the time investment to learn that, and there are some things that we can do there that are interesting, but to encapsulate all that knowledge and all that work that you've done and turn it over to somebody else to operate, that's a huge lift. And it can be daunting and almost impossible, especially as you start getting into these full automation systems that involve Isadora and a bunch of things that are built on top of that. That can be really hard to hand over to somebody else who's non-technical to be able to operate. So you can build the shortcut for somebody else and share it through a simple iCloud link and get access to that. I think Sam gave a really good and complete answer, so I don't want to try to do a worse version of that. So I'd encourage you to rewatch that part of it. But I think it comes down to inter-app workflows is another one. There's no way in ZoomOSC and Companion with all the tools you have today to be able to put the name of the song you're listening to in the music app in the chat. There's no way to do it, because that's part of macOS. That's part of the applications that support app intents. So these inter-app workflows, again, ZoomOSC can integrate with anything that supports OSC. Not every app supports OSC. So for all those different apps that support app intents or Siri intents instead, that are part of the Shortcuts ecosystem, now you're building inter-app workflows that are a lot simpler to do there. And the third one I would say is more ergonomic entry points into Zoom. I can have something in my top menu bar that triggers a shortcut. I can have something in my dock. I can have things that are using just the regular Stream Deck app that execute all this automation. And I can do this on iOS and iPadOS. So I can have an iPad that's sitting there in split screen view with Zoom on one side and my bank of shortcuts on the other side. Again, at the beginning, we showed a shortcut that counted up the number of people in the meeting and pasted it as a new line in the shortcut in the Notes app. Not something I can do with ZoomOSC, right? So it's more about integrating with other apps on the computer. It's more about packaging all that together, and it's making an easier entry point for those who haven't put in the big time investment to learn all the things that ZoomOSC can do. But again, I'd encourage you to have Sam kind of rehash or to watch that answer versus just my rehash of it. I'm not doing the justice that he was able to do.
And I want to say one thing about the number of clicks. So the example that you gave is, yes, if you had your participants window open, you could go and move your mouse and click on that person, the more menu, and click spotlight. But you also need to remove all the spotlights first. So you need to drag your mouse down to the bottom, click the remove spotlight, and then drag your mouse back up. What if your participants window was closed? Then you'd have to open it first. And if you're full screen, it might appear in a different part of if you have dual monitors, it might appear in a different floating window. But if you're in full screen, then you'd have to look on the side, right? Because it might be attached to the meeting window.
Well, on that participant's window itself, it's a mover.
Right.
Things are shifting around there based on, cameras on, cameras off, hands up, hands down, people coming, people going, and so forth. And so I like the grab a list, which you showed can be a sub list even, right, of hands raised, and it's fixed. And I think one of the options in building that shortcut is you could tell it how to sort that list as well. Is that right?
Exactly. You could sort by username or random right now. So A to Z or Z to A. So the other thing is again, we're probably all experts at Zoom. So we know exactly where all those user interface elements are, but a lot of people might not know. They might not know they have to go to the participants list. They might not know to click on the more menu, which is the 3 dots next to their name. Building a shortcut simplifies that experience because it guides the user exactly to do the action you want them to do. Same thing in a very simple example from a user standpoint, reactions. So right now, for me to go to reactions and put in a heart emoji, I have to click on reactions if my toolbar is visible, and I have to click the heart. And now if I want to do another one, I have to click it again and click this button. But now with the Stream Deck, I can just push this. it simplifies things. So even though maybe if you display kind of user interface elements like dialog boxes, it would take a few extra clicks. I think overall the speed improvements are much better than if you were have to mouse around on the screen.
Again, it's hand holding the user through the process, right? Because it could be too that like we've only given examples where we're kind of focusing in one area of the client at a time. What if we wanted to do things where it was like sending chat messages to people who were coming up next, and then it was we're gonna start talking about multiple parts of the client together. Maybe after we're done with somebody who asked their question, we put them in a breakout room and send them a message right before we do that, right? Like all those different pieces that we can do together. We might be flying all over the user interface to do that. But David, I do want to say that I think the question that you asked is a really fundamental and important question for automation in general, right? How many times have we heard like, I ended up automating a system that ended up requiring more work than just doing the thing manually at the beginning, right? I think it's important to keep that in mind. It's important to think about as you're creating these shortcuts, am I actually saving time and work and actually try to do it manually through the user interface and ask yourself what the pain points are so you can solve those problems when you're building the shortcut versus just thinking, oh, I got an idea and, blah, 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 just getting it knocked out. So I think your question is a very important question. I appreciate you asking it. And I encourage you to continue asking it as you design these shortcuts. So
I keep thinking here, how many times I've seen Zoom companion forums. How can I read a text file or write a text file, through Companion? Well, Companion just doesn't connect to the OS locally. It's an IP-based solution. It's network-based, not operating system-based, if you will. And to be able to take attendance, if you will, Andy arrived at such and such a time. Adam arrived at such and such a time, for certification courses or virtual school or whatever, right? And it just the simplicity of that is really kind of blowing my mind as far as everything the Mac has to offer. There's a dang good chance you can include it, in your shortcuts as well. All right. Thanks, David. I'm going to bring up Betsy.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. While you all were talking, my mind was blown in that my question first was, would you be able to, because it was John in the chat who was asking, can I just, and Adam, you were answering him, update your Zoom, have the so it's the Zoom version and then the iPad version. So mine equal that today. So I'm here right now on my Mac, which is not Ventura yet. I know where I'm going this weekend, or I'm going to just look and see if this Mac is compatible with an upgrade in the software. So in the meantime, I have my iPad here and I have the Shortcuts app up and I searched for Zoom. So ZoomCuts is not even in the mix here, correct?
That's correct.
Because I went to the site and it says just for Mac OS. So for an iOS user, because I do train the trainer workshop, so I teach power users. So, and they're just slightly less tech savvy, right? So they need this because they don't use any other third-party applications. They use pure Zoom. So this is beautiful. They just need to have an iPad. And a lot of them will annotate and do whiteboarding from their iPad. They might have, the Windows PC in the mix, but the iPad is there because they do that part of their teaching from that. So my question is, of the Zoom apps that are here, I mean shortcuts in the shortcut app, which is what I'm looking at, is something like, I see clear annotations is there. I mean, I'm just trying to get an idea of what you've talked about today. First of all, where can I go to learn this to make those flows? And then without the ZoomCuts, is this a limitation? That's about my question.
Let me take it from here. So you do see, ask the question first. You do see Zoom in the list of actions in the Shortcuts app. Okay, great. So we have implemented shortcuts across 3 different platforms: iOS, iPadOS, and macOS. So macOS, it's the ZoomCuts application that we can download from the Liminal site. And on iPadOS, iOS, it's the native Zoom app that everyone has on their device. The list of actions that are supported on iOS and iPadOS is a subset of the actions that are supported in ZoomCuts. So everything that the iOS and iPadOS action list appears in ZoomCuts, okay? But not everything that's in ZoomCuts appears on the iPad and iOS. Furthermore, there are some actions that behave differently on iOS and iPadOS. And that's just because the native Zoom client is used by a lot more people. So we wanted to be a little bit more careful. And again, as Andy mentioned, ZoomCuts on the Mac is a technical preview of kind of where we want to go, power users tool. And so certain functions like finding the list of participants, you need to be the host or co-host in order to run that on iOS or iPadOS. Okay. So a lot of the actions that you see, most people won't be able to use because they're not the host or the co-host of the meeting. But they will be able to do a lot of things. They can toggle their mute status, their camera. They can clear their annotations. Lot of things. There's still a lot of power and utility joining meetings and whatnot. But they won't be able to send in meeting chats. In fact, the send in meeting chat doesn't exist on iOS and iPadOS at the moment. But that's something hopefully we can bring in the future. What's great about doing it on iPhone and iPad is that actually the Zoom client supports picture-in-picture mode. So what you can do now is you can be in the Zoom client and then you can like swipe up to the home screen and then Zoom will be in a little pip window that you can drag around. And you can just go into the Shortcuts app or you can put shortcuts on the home screen using the home screen widgets, or I think it disables the ability to use Siri because you're in the Zoom call at the same time. But there are many ways to run shortcuts on iOS and iPadOS. Again, and he also mentioned split view on the iPad. So you could be in your Zoom meeting and just say you needed to mute yourself or unmute yourself. Right now, you have to actually tap on the picture-in-picture window, go back to Zoom, wait for the interface to update, and then tap the button. But now you can just go to the home screen, tap. You could be multitasking and other things, and you can have really quick access to do automations in the Zoom client through shortcuts.
All right, that's awesome, Adam. Thank you so much. And I just chatted from the iPad to show you, I added a shortcut that renamed myself. So I renamed and I just ran it. So I have officially done it here today. So thank you. Is there a way to find out in here which of these shortcuts are, because today I'm a participant on the iPad or on my Mac and I ran it. So, but I see a lot of these are like ask to start video. So can I do that from my iPad? Because it says ask participants to start video. Like, is there a way to find out which of these shortcuts are just for host, co-host, and which ones are for participants or everyone?
Yeah. So when you look at an action, there's a little info button, or you can tap on the little icon when you dragged it out, and then there's an option to get info or info about this action. And then in the description, though, it'll clearly state this action can only be run by the host or co-host.
Oh, awesome. Can I write your training for this and then teach the world about it?
I would love to have.
We want you to create a gallery of shortcuts for people to use.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful.
It's been so great to be with you. I'm excited to see what you do with it. We just closed InfoComm 2023. They're going to start tearing us down now, and they're about to yank my internet.
Nice.
So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. It was so good to be with you. Adam and I hope to be around soon. I would encourage you to make a channel in your Discord, and we'd love to participate there and continue the conversation as well. But for Adam and I, that's going to be goodbye, and so good to see you all. So take care.
Thank you guys very much for everything. Enjoy. Yeah, there will be there will definitely be a Discord channel in the sense of let's fix our spotlighting and so forth, and dedicated to like ZoomCuts discussion, so that we can ask and answer and kind of pull our hair out together. But I think I'll create a second Discord channel that is the shortcuts, the ability to actually put a shortcut there that then others can download and use or edit or whatnot as well. So it, I think it's super exciting, let alone I would suspect 2 or 3 out of the next Zoom test kitchens may be focused on ZoomCuts. Yeah. I mean, there's so much. It's not that ZoomCuts is like this app that's complex. It's just this ZoomCuts has landed itself in this very rich ecosystem called macOS, and all the other apps that have made themselves available to shortcuts and all that. It just the possibilities are truly endless at that. So I wrote you back in chat, David, about, I talked to Andy, it's like, gosh, are you telling me I got to run another SDK Zoom client, right? One for ZoomCuts and one for this and so forth. And so and I think my original question was actually, I guess maybe I finally have to run dual mode on, my Stream Decks, which is companion and the Elgato app, which I don't find desirable at all. And, his quick suggestion was, and David, you're the perfect candidate. You own about 20 Stream Decks, don't you? It's, when you've got one is, I'm going to dedicate one of my XLs to ZoomCuts with the native Elgato app, and my other XL will be dedicated, and I might have to go buy a third just because I have this two-panel design. My question wasn't about the Stream Decks,
though. My question was about, am I now joining meetings from ZoomCuts as my main client?
Yeah. Well,
that's what
if you're doing ZoomCuts on the Mac, yes, that ZoomCuts is a client that has to join the meeting to be able to do what it's going to do. But if and this is where I may not ever go into that split Stream Deck model. I have my iPad, but I use it a lot, but not in production so much. I will probably find myself with my iPad in front of me running instead of joining the meeting with the iPad with the native Zoom client, I'll join the meeting on my iPad with the ZoomCuts client, and then have all the shortcuts that I've built available right there on a panel. And I've already, I've created a few just to play around. And I thought, I should put all these in their own group in the iPad. And then I go, well, that's stupid. I can fit more in a bigger space if I just dedicate a page of the iPad.
Jeff, can I just stop you? Because in a way, guys, you're asking the wrong question. This is not for you. ZoomCuts is not designed for you.
I don't agree with that at all, because I can now finally press a single button and it will join my meeting. I'm going to be the host. It's a job I'm getting paid to do. I can join my meeting. I can be named the way I need to be named, and I can set all the security settings, all the chat settings, and the participant options all in one button. And OSC can't come close to that.
But look at Betsy's situation, which is their example. So Betsy has, and I do, we hold events. And in those events, we have speakers. They are the targets, the first targets for this use, because you set up the controls for them. They have them on their iPad, and all they do is they get delivered an iPad, or they install it on their iPad, and then they press the buttons to do what they need to do. They don't know how the buttons work. They've got no idea how the buttons work. All they know is they've got an app and it does it all for them. And that is the group of people that couldn't do all of this before. And that's where it's a big step forward, in my view.
It's a big step for that group, for those people. I agree.
Yeah,
but it's not. This isn't an isolated solution, as far as users go. I think there's some real wins from virtual producers. There's a number of things, and it gives us choices as well. How do we want to approach it? And so it's, I love the ZoomOSC stuff because it is dynamic data, and the Stream Deck buttons change, in gallery view when hands go up. All those things that, this can't do, but there's a lot of things, especially when it comes to, like my reference to maybe attendance keeping or arrival times or, things like that can just, they can't sit back there and be automated, so make no assumption. I don't want to add any confusion. When it's not, ZoomCuts isn't sitting there waiting for somebody to arrive and then doing something because they arrived. It doesn't have that non-user interactive kind of execution. I have to push a button to make it do something, but what it can do after that button press is quite powerful. So anyways, I think there's a multitude of groups, but I fully agree. I mean, this is something, this approach, and I'm not sure how far, how close I am to right or wrong, but this is much closer. ZoomCuts is much closer to be able to see and realize the native Zoom client, including one day soon, and so there will just be, this will be available on any Mac that the native Zoom client is installed on. I mean, that merging, which will happen one day, will be phenomenal, because really what they've done is they've taken the shortcut list under settings of the native Zoom client and just put it on steroids, and beyond. And so that, and they can be simple routines, or they can be like that one that Adam showed, fairly complex, right? The introduce yourself type, logic, where, he didn't get into it, but, where there's loops and so forth, and, it's that programmer logic, if you will, but it's not a language necessarily. And that's what keeps it simpler. So Hasmuk.
Thanks, Jeff. I've been playing with ZoomCuts for a week or so, and exclusively on the Mac. So I know for it to work, I have to either join or start a meeting from ZoomCuts app on the Mac. You mentioned a little earlier that if you were using it on the iPad, that you would join the meeting with the iPad client. So is there a ZoomCuts client on the iPad, which I'm not aware of? No. Correct?
No, it's not. It's not a ZoomCuts client. It is in fact the native Zoom client. It just has to be on the .10 version or newer. So right now, .10 or .11.
Oh, so you start the meeting with your normal Zoom client on iOS, and the shortcuts would then work with that Zoom client. That's what you're saying.
I haven't tested it on iPad yet. So my guess is once the shortcut's built, it's built.
I'll tell you what I did to get it to work, Jeff.
Go ahead.
So I was told that I had the wrong version, so I updated my Zoom. I updated my shortcuts. I then went into shortcuts. I looked at the list of apps that are available to use in shortcuts, and Zoom was added to the list.
Yeah, it's added there. I think Hasmuk's...
And then you click on it, and all the commands are available to you.
Yeah. I think Hasmuk's discussion here is around, do I have to start the ZoomCuts client first on the iPad, or can I build? So the client, let's just say Zoom client's not running. Can you go to shortcuts and build shortcuts? One of them being join meeting. And the answer is yes. And so do you need to launch the client to be able to execute the shortcut called join meeting? And I believe the answer is no. You don't have to launch the app first. The join meeting, I believe, will take care of that for you, but we need to verify. But I believe that is going to be the executable logic. Happy to try it while we're in the kitchen. There's no reason not to. If somebody's got an iPad, I have it in my other room.
Yeah.
But we can go total workshop mode right now for the next hour or so, and just kind of play around. And it's not show time. It's not a show. It's just a workshop. And I'll just put it in active speaker mode for YouTube and leave it at that. But if there's enough interest in that, certainly. I mean, I'm the furthest thing from authority on this. I've begun to play with it a little bit, starting to kind of get in my mind how it would be added to my work environment, if you will, and be a plus, not just a cool new tool, but a really, really useful new tool, and how it would not just clutter the desk and have a lot of overlap with OSC. I'm kind of looking for, can I simplify some of the things I've done with the Stream Deck and OSC with shortcuts? And I don't know the answer to that right now. Maybe, but I know I can't replace OSC with with the way I use it anyways, with shortcuts. But I also know I can get way more out of shortcuts inside that Mac ecosystem that I can't even begin to think about accomplishing with ZoomOSC. And so it really depends on the task at hand. What do you want to accomplish? What do you need to accomplish? So Betsy says she just tested from her iPad. I was able to join the meeting from the Shortcuts app. I had to build in the meeting ID and passcode in the Shortcuts. Yeah. And, I mean, you don't have to. You did, but you didn't have to. You could have it prompt you if you wanted to. So when you launch that shortcut, you could put in, the meeting information. But I think the real advantage is, to hit one button and join a meeting. In my world anyways, it would be, I'd have this group of meetings that I normally join, the Zoom Test Kitchen, office hours, and there's a few others that I know what their IDs are and I know what I sign in as and so forth. And so I would either, I would have a shortcut to join the meeting and have it prompt me with a list of which one, or you could build one shortcut for each meeting, which to me is a waste of button space, but needless to say, pick your passion. That's the thing, is there's just all this flexibility as well. So who else is thinking of what? It's going through people's minds. Thanks for
Jeff, I am struggling so much with this.
Yeah.
I want to love this more than anything in the world. And I'm all in for sharing it with people that are not ZoomOSC companion people. I'm all in on that. Why would I need to run Zoom? So I just joined this meeting. I'm not in this meeting from like 5 different clients. Why would I need ZoomCuts if I'm using ZoomOSC? And other than the integration with Mac apps, which that's not in my workflow.
Yeah.
Maybe it should
well, my answer would be, you don't today. And when you do, you'll know it. Right. I mean, that's just, you just don't, you can't imagine. And I've been able to begin to imagine having some, pretty slick, additions with ZoomCuts. The technologist in me, I want to understand it and I want to spend time on it, because when that moment you and I figure out, oh my gosh, I need to do this, and OSC can't touch that because it's kind of a local operating system thing, or writing to a text file or sending an email automatically. Like, who knows? Somebody says, hey, at 3:15, 15 minutes into the meeting, please send me an email and let me know how many people arrived. You can, at 3:15, you can touch a button in ZoomCuts and it will generate that email and it will send it to them through your email client. And so, it's just knowing that all those branches, because of where ZoomCuts lives, whether we have a need or a demand for them now, they're readily available. And so I've got to have my knowledge readily available as well. It's like, I know I can do that. And but I'll tell you, the options, sky's the limit type thing. There's only so much you can learn as a foundation, right? Because you really don't know where you're going to apply it yet. And when that day comes, there may be a little bit more to learn, but at least the foundation's there, the logic, the flow, being prompted versus burning in a meeting ID, which Betsy just did, and so forth. So lots to figure out, and like I said, I hate to encourage people to go get busy with something that they can't. I mean, it's like us sitting in grade school going, teacher, why in the world would I ever need this? And they're bored and they're scratching their head and all those things. I feel like it's similar. So I'm not saying anybody has to go spend that time when you can't even imagine it being beneficial. But if you can kind of imagine it being beneficial for you, or, you know, I mean, I look at this and I compare it to all the work I put into my Stream Deck design for ZoomOSC. I haven't been able to e-commerce that solution yet because of the instability of Companion 3.0. And then I downloaded it today, but the latest Companion, but I haven't run it yet with any type of eye to it. But, you know, I mean, a couple of weeks ago when we had the kitchen and I was not happy about those pop-up automated icons for statuses, I was super happy for the logic. I was very unhappy with the cosmetics, right, that stomped all over my original design. If I would have had a customer base out there with, you know, a dependency on that and so forth, and they would have upgraded Companion, it would have blown it to pieces. And so, but the ability to, and that's code that's like completely beyond my control. If I were to, you know, build a few shortcuts and make them available for download, or I send them in an email, whatever the case may be, to somebody else, I can just pop that open and because especially if you go to like iCloud server, I think it'll keep it updated in the whole bit to changes that you've made. Everybody in the network, all of a sudden, it's really easy to pass, you know, like individual button solutions versus, you know, full exports of the Companion profile and so forth. So I think there's just you know, kind of a granular, the shareability is big if that is where you're at. You know, I think this community itself is going to become a great example of the power of being able to create and share shortcuts that we're developing, you know. So I look forward to that as well. Sorry, we've got a couple people who bear with me. Robert, you go ahead. I need to co-host a couple people.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Hey, David, can I try and answer your question, please? The two sort of scenarios that come to my mind when you ask that question. One is you do all of this teaching, and I'm sure that there is a subset of all of the people who attend all of your teaching classes that are limited in their capability of having the number of Stream Decks that you have, the amount of equipment that you have, and understanding Companion in the way you do. And just imagining setting up, if you were to set up a minimal group of functionality for them and just dish it out in loads, that's such an easy way to onboard a lot of people who could get up and running to stream or to teach very quickly. That's one scenario. The other one that comes to my mind is, and I don't wish you this, I don't wish you bad in any way, David, but if for any one time you're away from your computer for a week, there is no one on this earth that can step into your configuration and perform what you do. And if you were to just get a subset of that and put it to one side and say, listen, I'm away from a week, here you are, wifey, this is all you have to do, click on this, click on that, and it's all done. And it will not be the same quality as what you're doing, but it'll definitely be somewhere close to what you're doing. Those are the two sort of scenarios that come to my mind when you ask that question. And I see those scenarios because I think it applies to me as well. Even though I don't teach, I do other things that are very, very spread out all over the world. And we find it difficult to coordinate things. And this is going to be a super little tool for us to do that.
Agreed. Anybody else? Thoughts? Yeah, John, that went through my mind when I was co-hosting both of your machines. It's like I'd love to just pop up a list and go boom, 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 you know, on co-hosting. And I mean, I can do that on ZoomOSC on my Stream Deck as well, you know, but guess what? ZoomCuts is free, and ZoomOSC is for a certain feature set, but But for a lot of the useful stuff that I need and use, it is a subscription, and it's certainly a reasonable one at that. But you know, tough to beat free.
Do any of you
So-
know if the original sound toggle is working? When I tried it last, it wasn't. The shortcut to toggle original sound.
Yeah, I heard their answer was yes, you can do that, but I haven't actually kind of put it to the test yet. Shall we? Are you doing it on Mac or a iOS device? Oh, they said it wasn't available on iOS, so disregard.
Yeah,
that comment.
I want to stay away from iOS because it takes down the quality of the video. I don't see how that's something I want to do. Start joining with an iPad.
No, that's a fair point. It's a fair point.
Don't think
Jeff Hasmuk
if
has
the
his
video's off, don't you carry on getting HD so you can use the iPad as a controller? Would that work?
Who's in here with an iPad right now? I was thinking that John.
I've
you
got
and
an
I
iPad running.
You have an iPad running?
Yeah.
Okay, so if the
video is off.
I'm going to spotlight. I was thinking exactly the same thing. Out of all the things we've talked about, tested, and so forth around, obtaining high definition, I instantly thought when David made that comment, I don't know for sure whether the video on, video off actually affects the results as well. So I'm sending 1080 right now. I've got David, go ahead and talk.
Sorry, I'm building out my Stream Deck now while we're doing this, so I have to keep changing. This is David, and I'm talking into my microphone.
So I'm receiving you at 720, but it says I'm sending at 1080. Can somebody confirm that you're getting me at 1080? Anybody?
I'm getting 720.
You're getting 720 from me? Yeah. So, John, is there anybody else with a mobile device in the meeting other than John's iPad? Got Hasmuk. So, can you guys just make sure the video is off, which I think it already is, right? That your video is off. And
I have ZoomISO running in the background, and the only person I see with 1080 is David Paskin.
That and ISO's still pulling 1080. That's interesting.
You know what else? I'm not seeing things like toggle. There's a mute toggle, but there's not a video toggle. There's not. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm under an early assumption, without deeper testing, but I'm under an early assumption that mobile devices presence, even with video off, doesn't enable 1080.
The iPad has left the building.
Yeah. And you don't actually, we can just send it to the waiting room, and that we know makes the change as well. So any mobile devices we can send to the waiting room, confirm we get 1080, and then bring one in with or without video on, and confirm for sure that it doesn't affect it just based on camera.
I'm getting 1080 now.
Yeah, something just happened just recently that I'm getting 1080 with you now, Jeff.
Yeah, I took my iPad out of the meeting. My iPad is now not in the meeting at all.
Well,
But
and
now
my
it's back
iPhone-
down.
Did you leave
My
as well?
iPhone is
Hasmuk?
also, my
Okay.
iPhone left the meeting.
So yeah. So I think our two mobile devices, which I can't tell, like, were they the only two? It looks like they were the only two, have both left, and now we've got 1080 going on. I will say that my ZoomCut client on my Mac video looks amazing. Not my video. I mean, I am looking at myself right now, but just the quality of it and the resolution of it has been really rock solid compared to my PC. I look, yeah, I'm sharp on the PC now. Mike, go ahead and talk. You know how it goes from that fuzzy stage to sharp stage when you active speaker?
So yeah, this is me talking, and we'll see if I'm only sending out 720 right now as I'm watching you, but yet I'm getting, there's 1080. So you should have me now as 1080. I'm sending and receiving 1080 now.
Yeah. So if when I spotlit you, then then it sharpened you right up. I was expecting it to possibly pull that off to a degree in the gallery, but you're kind of fuzzy in the gallery, but yeah. And my local one's sharp in the gallery, but that's because I'm not coming into my local client from the cloud. I am local. So that's not a fair test. Anyways, we what was it, original sound, David?
Yeah, Jeff. So here's the thing with original sound. So it works, but, and this is really interesting, and I shared this feedback with them. So I can't really show you because we'll get the infinity thing going on, but oh my God, that was, sorry. So you know how you have, if you look at the top left of your, sorry, do you hear me doubled or is it just me?
I think it's just you.
Okay, good, because I've been on two clients. So if you look at the top left, it says, if you have this enabled, original sound from musicians on or off, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I now have a button which will change that state. And what will happen is a little pop-up will come at the top that says original sound is now on or off.
But the button doesn't
The
update.
status doesn't change.
That's the same thing OSC does. OSC can control original sound on my machine only, naturally, and it was feedback I gave way back when that because for my initial feedback was, hey, this isn't working. Then I realized it's just not updating the button, because I'd look at the dialogue under settings, and sure enough, it was there, or something. Yeah, you could. Yeah, I think you could turn it off, and so it wouldn't display the button, and something I could look at that kind of traced it behind the scenes, which is what you just did as well, right? So, yeah, there's something in the SDK that needs to get added for a kind of a display update on that button when it's visible. So you're confirming that the shortcut does work. It just the client itself.
It
just
does. You know what else is
updated.
interesting? So I have a couple of Stream Deck buttons that control my main Zoom. So I now have both Zooms open. Some of them work on both. So I have a button that switches between gallery and speaker view. If I press that, it changes on both clients. If I press the button to open chat, it does it on both clients. If I press the button to open the participants panel, it only does it on the main client.
Interesting.
Let me try the
and are those two clients signed in as different accounts?
And it raised hands on both. Oh no, it didn't. It just raised the hand on my Cuts client. It did it? Now I can't. I don't even know where I am.
Yeah, it was only in your Cuts client.
That's weird.
Are you signed on as the same account on both of those clients or different?
No, different accounts.
Different accounts.
Yeah. That's interesting.
But you're running both clients. So you're running a native client and the ZoomCuts client on the same Mac.
Same machine, yeah.
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 Interesting.
Do you know if there's like if the mute and the video and stuff do the toggles work? It's unclear to me that.
So got mute participants, mute my audio, or ask to unmute. So I'll build.
So the mute button is a toggle.
Well, yeah.
But
yeah.
the video button is not.
I'm not super clear on the difference between turn, I guess. Turn would be if there's an on-off parameter. Yeah, so if you select turn instead of toggle, click on the word toggle. You can click on toggle and change it to
video,
turn. When you put it on turn, then you get the option of on or off. So it can be a more explicit shortcut.
Oh, toggle my video. Oh.
Wow. What does somebody close their mic? I was used to hearing some noise and now it's like super quiet in here. Need some music. Quiet kills me. Don't know why.
Sorry, just one other thing, Jeff, is that I'm really missing is the feedback on the buttons. Honestly, that could be a killer for me because like so I can toggle my mute button, but I don't have the option
It's not active. Yeah. Yeah.
ZoomCuts
is not active as far as being able to, you know, we've been, excuse me, well taken care of with feedback in OSC, you know, color changes, text changes, you know, PNG changes based on feedback state and ZoomCuts.
But even in just Stream Deck. No, but even if I use the mute button on native Stream Deck, I can because it's a toggle, it gives me 2 images based on what state it's in, and you don't have that with unless maybe no. I mean that's a real. Unfortunately, that's a real problem unless there's a workaround.
Yeah. Well, the shortcut.
David, have you tried get set variable? So I can do set variable to set my video. So I could I can pull if my video's on into a variable, and then I could make some decision based on that value. So it's not visual, but you can pull in values.
And what all I want the button to show whether my mic is live or not. That's all.
No, they don't do that. And actually, he said in the presentation that you won't get that feature, or you don't get that feature at present.
Yeah, he said he had talked about on office hours, I think, about this in particular, that that is you know, picking the right tool for the workflow. And he said, you know, active feedback and ZoomCuts really, I mean, he didn't say this exactly, but basically active feedback, the need for active feedback in ZoomCuts at this point in time is not going to be the right tool. And,
well, then what you really just want to do is you want to have a mic on button and a mic off button, I guess, is what you need.
Yeah. Yeah. Press one or the other. But that, you know, that assumptive approach is I do this because I plan on replacing OSC, you know, and the fact is there's just some real wins on the OSC side of things, you know, as far as like meeting management and, you know, when you need to, when and if you need to reach into the ecosystem or write information to files or whatnot, or you know, Andy was showing some examples, you know, of it sending, you know, a chat of what music we're listening to, you know, building creative approaches, you know, to some interactive stuff. I mean, I would imagine that the ability to take, you know, oh, David Paskin, first name, last name, David Paskin's joined the meeting. Press this button, you know, select David Paskin. It goes out and it, you know, like finds you on whatever, LinkedIn or Facebook, you know, and pulls something out and throws it in the chat. You know, like that, you know, those types of possibilities are so much nearer without having to be a programmer, know how to actually code. You do. I mean, the more complex it gets, you have to understand programmatic logic, conditional logic and looping logic. But outside of that, you don't have to know how to write the code to accomplish that logic either. So it's all drag and drop. But, still kind of day one, right? Week one. And so we're going to, justifiably scratch our head for a while and figure it out. And even when like Companion 3 came out, when we started playing with it so much early on, I didn't, where was latch, right? And what are these multiple steps? And then, especially multiple steps, like more than two. Okay, well, if steps have replaced latch, I go, okay, it's on and it's off. And that's step one, step two. It's like when or how I'd ever do a, 3-step deal or whatnot. And then I'm doing it, it's like, step one takes the 0 to 15 minutes. The step two takes it from 15 to 30, like I found myself actually going, wow, there you go. And, it just took a while to be able to actually identify a need. And it was just, applying more, if you will, programmatic logic to the Stream Deck or Companion than we had been able to do before. And so I think we'll certainly grow into this some way. Not everybody. It's not going to be for everybody. Just like ZoomOSC. ZoomOSC is not for everybody. That's for sure. And so we'll identify, one, is it a tool that we need in our toolkit, and two, how, and how will it coexist with all of our other investments. So.
Yeah, Jeff definitely won't be for the Windows users.
Definitely won't be for the Windows users. That's true. It is a Mac only solution. But, Mac won that race. Like, does Windows have shortcuts built in? Not at all like Mac. I mean, Mac's ecosystem around shortcuts really is. Let alone there's, a whole other app called automation, right? And you can use the automator and integrate shortcuts into that, along with all kinds of other things. Pretty crazy. All right. What's new in real quickly? Let's take a look at Zoom features. Are there any
just before you get into the Zoom features, if I can give just a quick update, because I've been working on this project to record ISO feeds. Don't know if anyone is interested in that, but I now have a Mac Mini M2 Pro that I'm running ZoomISO with a full license. And
show off.
No, but it was required. It was required for two reasons, because I suddenly realized that if I wanted to record on the same machine that I'm running Mac ZoomISO, I need to have a 10 gigabit port on there, because I just couldn't push everything in and out of the network fast enough. And that was one reason. And then speaking with Andy, he sort of sized this up for me. I'm currently running ZoomISO and a recording app for ISO in NDI. So the NDI sort of closes within the Mac, not getting into the network so much. And I'm sending all of the recordings live to a NAS. So there's a lot of traffic going through the network card, and it's keeping up. I did an event yesterday where I had 14 streams. Of course, only 8 of them were 1080p, the rest was 720, and that is working. I don't know if I can say it's a stable solution, but it's a solution that has worked so far for one big event, and I'll be testing it further on. So if anyone's interested to look at it, I will be very willing to share it. And it hasn't been an easy solution to find this technical solution for recording ISO with an app as opposed to a hardware feature. It's not an easy thing to do.
Tomorrow there's a big events platform release. Like the list is pretty daggone long. I'm not going to read through that. The 18th, virtual agent for the contact center. The 19th, Zoom client. So there's a release. There's a release coming for Zoom client on the 19th. Yeah, June 19th. So that's just 3 days away. It says, I'll share it. Team chat message retention logic. All right, so general features. I've got a sneeze coming. Good old mute button. The give feedback form is redesigned to enable customers to provide satisfaction scores, provide feedback on Zoom's product suite. Zoom will then analyze it. Okay. Meeting and webinar. Pinch scroll to Zoom shared content. Users viewing shared content can more easily adjust their current view by using the Command plus track wheel on Mac and Linux or Alt track wheel on Windows, shortcut with a mouse, or pinch to zoom with a trackpad. Didn't say anything about iOS because I think you can already do that on iOS on an iPad, like pinch and
Jeff,
and
can I
zoom.
interrupt for one moment?
Can you what?
Can I interrupt you for one moment?
Yeah.
Something just popped back into my mind. Is it okay if I divert you from this for a moment?
I call that derail, but yeah.
Sorry if I derail you from this for a moment.
Sorry.
I don't know if this is officially what it's called, but have any of you heard of Zoom clubs?
I have not.
Okay, so this is I just saw this the other day. So this is this organization is a trusted Zoom partner, and somehow they have this what they're calling a Zoom club membership, where you essentially get what looks like a business account plus. So 500 meeting attendees, 500 webinars. So webinars included in this. 2HD, a true HD, and it's like $45 a month.
I find that pretty hard to believe, in the sense that they are a trusted Zoom partner and are here reselling this.
Well, I happen to know this company, and they're they're I don't know what a trusted Zoom partner means, but the company at least is the real deal. I know Luria, and this is. I've never heard of trusted Zoom partners or this at all. I was curious if anyone else has heard of it.
I mean, I know her face and name. I mean, if she's the one behind it, I mean, it's upped the odds a bit, but because she's been around the industry a long time. But I've never seen, I have yet to see a person or organization last online very long until they get caught reselling.
Exactly. That's what I thought. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe she's.
So you think that's what this is?
Setting a first. What's that?
You think that this is just reselling business accounts, or do you think that maybe there's actually some thing that Zoom is now? I don't know.
Yeah.
David, on that FAQ, can you click on where it says, "Am I paying Zoom?"
Yeah. Zoom Club includes your Zoom account subscription, so you'll only be paying for your monthly Zoom Club membership. So you pay them, and then they pay Zoom. Now, the transferring, this is interesting because the question is, what are the impacts if I transfer my current Zoom account? This looks like they're simply adding you to a business account. I mean, this is exactly kind of what happened when I changed from a pro to a business account.
Were you on when a couple weeks back, because I've had to transition.
Right.
so if I recall, Robert was a highly skeptical individual when I first said everything transferred. I mean, recordings, all my settings, all my settings for, webinar settings, recording settings, all the settings, and even the backend settings was my unknown initially, and then I verified, man, all I did was relaunch Zoom Test Kitchen, like nothing changed. I mean, it just, everything was intact. And so, I mean, it does. Yeah. If that's the thing, because they're explaining this, in these different components on transfer and so forth, if you provide them an existing email address from an existing Zoom account that you've, made investment in, if you will, of, having recordings and settings and so forth, then it will, transfer. But if you give them, I mean, possibly in my world, if I were to do this, I'd give them a clean email address, clean, unique email address. It would be a new attachment to their services, and there would be nothing to transfer because I don't think I'd want to.
Did that actually say that it transfers when coming in or when they leave? Because Jeff, remember we talked about this. I gave you a print screen because I was skeptical about the fact that you delete someone from your account and that person goes away with all the data, but that it doesn't happen that way. When you're deleting someone, he gets a pop-up, and then the admin person gets a pop-up, and in that pop-up it says, do you want to transfer all of this user's data, and if so, where to? So it's a decision you're making. It just doesn't happen automatically.
Yeah.
But
and you could have said, like in my case, you could have answered, yes, go ahead and let the data go. And then I would have logged in, because when you released me from your business account, I became a basic account, not even a pro. So even though all that data is attached to the account, I have zero access to it, because a basic account, doesn't record and so forth. But if I were to, like from Guy to Greg, that transfer from an enterprise account to an enterprise account, everything transferred, and in fact, everything was still completely accessible. But it things could change, on, I mean, Guy and Greg happen to have, like, they negotiated their license based on each other's information, and, they knew what one got, and, so they ended up with pretty similar set of features and so forth. But, things could vary as far as, somebody else's, business account and capacity agreements, things like that. But needless to say, yeah, it was an important detail that I idealized. I was speaking to the success. What you've confirmed is it didn't have to go that way. It didn't do it, and it didn't do it by default. So, Guy authorized that to occur. So that's good.
And there's another thing, that option appears when you specifically delete a user from the account. If I were just to take the license away from you, like you said, you'd still be on my account, but without any.
I'd be a basic account. Yeah, and that's what Guy had done. He had. It wasn't that his account, his enterprise license died. He removed me from being licensed first, and thank goodness he kind of took that step, because then that made me transferable, if you will. and then everything stayed intact. I think if you would have deleted it, I don't know if you can. It's I just don't know if it wasn't his domain. Like I would guess that if it's an account that is part of his domain, the .com or whatnot, that he'd be able to literally delete the account. Mine was an outside address that he added, and my guess would be he couldn't actually delete, but he could remove the license, and I think he'd be
The example that I sent across to you, Jeff, I deleted the account and it wasn't part of my domain.
Really?
Yeah, I deleted it. If I just take the license away without deleting it, there are no options to move anything to anyone because they're still on my account.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And to figure out that logic between those two.
I'm going to leave you guys. See you. Have a good weekend, and see you next week. Take care.
You too. Bye, Robert.
I'm sticking with OSC.
Yeah. Hey, OSC is not leaving me anytime soon, for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm anxious to spend time on ZoomCuts for sure, in a big way. I think there's
I'll play with it.
If we don't dig in a bit, we'll never have that light bulb moment that goes, oh my gosh, there it is. That's why. Yeah. Hello, John. John Iddleson. John Drinkwater's here too.
Well, we never have enough Johns. What can I say?
Very good. What else, you guys? What else? Do we want to try to build something? Shortcuts? Anybody?
Let's do it.
What do we want to build?
We're going to say anybody, Bueller.
Build the opening one that you talked about, the one button start a meeting thing.
Okay.
You don't have to build it. You can just show it to us if you want.
No, it's not done. I had gotten started, but let's see. Okay, so let me share. ZoomCuts would like to record. Let me give it some privileges so it can share. So I'm trying to launch a share for the first time from the ZoomCuts client, and it did not have, in the Mac, under settings, privacy and security, under screen recording. I'm now enabling that. ZoomCuts may not be able to record. Well, I'm going to try later so I don't have to disconnect from the meeting, but if it doesn't work, that may force my hand. I can just share it through vMix through the network too. Oh, it fixed. I didn't have to restart. All right. So desktop 1. So you should see the shortcuts window like I do. And let's see. I have a reason. Yeah, did the join meeting. Just this one, I think I ripped everything out and was going to start again. All right, so So let me back up. So I fired up for the archives, especially. I fired up shortcuts. So I'm going to close this. Here's shortcuts in the Mac, the app called Shortcuts. And with that, I click on new shortcut. For the sake of visibility, I'll make it big. And you can give it a name up top. So I'll just say, so it doesn't stomp on the other one, auto join meeting. And then over on the right side, I want to see what is it that I have access to as far as the apps are concerned on the Mac itself. These are all the different apps that we have shortcut access to, and ZoomCuts is there. And if you wanted to just filter this list without having to look at all the other apps, you can click in the search and just type Zoom, and that'll that'll shortcut it. And then click on that icon find, and then it'll build that list, and that'll let you use the search again for one of the actions or intents, I think Andy's been calling them. So with that, I can type join, and I can drag join meeting into the mix. I wonder if this will magnify. Not seeing that. Just want to see. There is Windows Zoom. Nope. It's not the one. Okay. All right. So join meeting with meeting ID or URL, depending on what we want to provide it, and then if it's the meeting ID, you can type that in and hard code it. Under the show more, you can provide the passcode and so forth. So I'm not going to necessarily be able to execute the join portion of this, but this could be step one of the shortcut because I'm already in the meeting. Then once I'm in the meeting, if I'm starting it as the host, for instance, then I would start getting after the I think it's set. Might shorten that a little bit. There's a there's a set, because I want to go through and set all the security options to so there's a set meeting setting, set meeting view I don't want, in meeting host, set meeting setting, set host, chat privileges. So here's the chat privileges piece of it. Find mic, set co-host, set meeting topic. You can get the meeting settings. There's one other that I was looking for. Let's see. All right. Well, let's work with that for now. So the the right now it defaults to turn versus toggle, so that's a bit more explicit. So turn a meeting setting on or off is really what it's all about. So on or off is an option if you click on it, and then the setting has a lot of options there. So is this one I asked about as well. So is play chime on, and this is a set. So I'm a little confused where is. That's more like I'm going to get something in return, and so I'm going to take that out so I can just run this, because it does in fact return the value yes. But Let me see if I can do a search for chime. Yeah, there's nothing else. Nothing's coming up on chime. Oops, one too many E's. So we've got get meeting URL, leave, set meeting view, set meeting setting, which is what I'm working on. Set meeting topic, get meeting setting. That kind of feels like what I'm getting from the set meeting is a get, because it's returning, but it's just I'm at a point where I just have to kind of dig in, look, and see. Set host, stop, set chat. Here's the set original sound, which you were working with, right? And there's another one. Set security setting. Yeah, there we go. So there's the set security setting, which is really kind of a bulk of the meeting setup, right? So we want to lock the meeting. I mean, if we wanted to be, super specific, we can go ahead and, I hardly ever touch lock meeting, but if we want to be explicit, we'd say, turn lock meeting off, even though it defaults to it. And next step, enable waiting room on, which I do. Allow participants to chat is on. Get meeting settings. Oh, I had chat there earlier, but I took it out. Allow participants to chat. Allow participants to share screen, which I turned off. We're just talking about the Zoom Test Kitchen right now. And oops. Share screen, rename. I allow. Unmute. In this meeting, I allow unmuting. Some of the others I don't. Start video is on. Share whiteboards. In here, I actually turn that off initially, unless we find that we need it. And I think that select variable, set security setting, meeting setting. Yeah, there's meeting settings as well. Meeting setting or set meeting setting. I don't know what that means. Yeah, some of these things I don't quite understand the logic on what it's aiming for. So I'm not going to mess with that right now. Last one was whiteboards off. So lock, all right, then get. This this is if I had some logic going on and wanted to make some conditional logic choice. I go, well, what's the current setting, and then choose what to do based on that result. So I'm not doing that. This is a meeting setting, but I don't know why it's followed with is play chime on.
By the way, while you're working on this, I'll just say that ZoomCuts was, I'm not sure, a great choice of name. When you Google ZoomCuts, the only thing that comes up are Zoom layoffs. Yeah, no, I saw that today or yesterday. I saw that. It's so new, and it's not. This is this is a pre-release, if you will. It's an early release that they're introducing us to, and so it's really not a public product yet. Right. So there's not much to index. It does somewhere in that list. It has liminal, so it eventually
does find it on the liminal site, but I think that's probably about the only place it's really kind of talked about right now. So on, if I drag my tool, can you see that toolbar the Zoom toolbar that I just dragged into the share?
Yeah, I think so.
So you can see the security menu that just dropped down?
No, sorry, I can't see that.
Okay, let me go to gosh. Oh, here we go. Let's do this. Go to settings that way. Oh, let's do always show meeting controls. And then is it share? Which one shows the Zoom tools? General, I think. Show meeting timers. I'm not seeing that there. Full screen dual monitors. Should be under share. Full screen fit. I wonder if it's not in this client. Let me look over here on my native client. That option that says show you guys my Zoom windows when I share. Yeah, the native Zoom client has show my Zoom windows to other, and it may show up here as well. This might be, I'm logged in as a different Zoom account. I may not have that enabled in the portal because that has to be enabled in the portal first. So anyways, so I'm going to try to go with the opposites here. I'm on the security badge, and because I'm going to lock the meeting, I'm going to have that option off. I'm going to intentionally turn it on. Enable waiting room. I'm going to turn that off because the shortcut's going to turn it on. And same thing. Now, I will say, out of those security setting options, Q&A is not in there, and it is under the security icon of the Zoom toolbar. So it doesn't, at my first glance, I didn't see anything about Q&A, so that doesn't look controllable. Share screen, I'm going to turn off in the shortcut, so I'll leave it on. Chat, I'm going to turn on, so I'll turn it off. Rename, unmute, start video. Share whiteboards is on. Okay, so most everything there is now the opposite. And I'm gonna run the shortcut. Go back to the security badge. Lock meeting is now turned off. Enable waiting room is now enabled. Share screen is off. Chat is on. Rename is on. Unmute is on. Start video is on. Share whiteboards is off. Just exactly the way I've got it built. So having, and this was the reason. It's like I asked during the time the Zoom guys were here, can a shortcut call a shortcut? And why in the world? Well, if I want the one touch set security settings to be at any given time its own button, then I want the join meeting script or shortcut to call this shortcut. So the results of this shortcut, I don't have to go duplicate it in the join meeting shortcut. I can just call this shortcut and make it part of join meeting. But if I find myself, what if I found myself in a meeting that I wasn't originally hosting, and let's say, David, you give me host control, now I could independently just run the security setting button and boom, set it, to my preferences all in one touch, which I think is super powerful, but just start kind of thinking these things out and brainstorming. But that's, it's kind of like object-oriented coding, you want to be able to, reuse code and not duplicate code or anything similar to other code that you wrote, right? So it's good to know. I need to I need to find out how to. I need to dig in and do that, call a shortcut from a shortcut type deal, but find it pretty useful. It's certainly control that Zoom doesn't provide natively, without a mouse, and I think there's a lot of possibilities. All right, guys. Well, the join part I can't do. I'm already in the meeting, so there's that. But as far as brainstorming, if we even just looked from Finder, this is good. Betsy actually asked about breakout. So it's find breakout room user, find breakout rooms, find the camera, and that's if you're multi-camera, user. The Zoom shortcut, the native shortcut, only rotates through our cameras, right? And our audio devices, where the find microphone and find camera, and let alone there's a set down here somewhere as well, is you can be very specific about it, of which one. So find participant, find speaker, find webinar attendee, configure audio and video, mute, set original sound, control breakout room, manage breakout room users, host meeting controls, get meeting setting, revoke co-host, set host, set meeting setting, set meeting topic, and set security settings. So yeah, there's meeting. I did meeting settings and security settings. I did one meeting setting up there. Oops. Meeting. So if I added a set meeting, turn or toggle the settings. Can attendees view all questions? Can attendees upvote questions? Are they anonymous? Can panelists start video or comment questions allowed? So Q&A. Are participants allowed to unmute themselves? And so participants, that's interesting. That seems redundant. So if I do that, are participants allowed to, and if I set that to on, that feels super redundant. Allow participants to unmute themselves under the security piece. Okay. Is participant renaming allowed? That seems redundant. Is mute on entry? Is sending my video? Is play chime on? So it says is play chime on, and then it said on off. But I don't think that actually turns it off. So I'm gonna stop the share so I can see my Zoom window. My machine is co-host. If I go to participants, to the settings, yeah, it says play, join, leave, join and leave sound. That's in the client. So I do, as far as me being a co-host, I have access to that setting. It's on right now. the shortcut, if this is playtime on and I turn it off, will it turn it off? So let's do that again. Play chime. Play chime. Where is it? Mute. Yeah. Play, join, and leave sound. And the client is on right now. Run this one more time. Get rid of any confusion. And it's still on. Is playtime on? And if I don't know why, but I'll set it to on. I don't think either one of them is working. I wonder. Well, let me test that one first and then see. Because then I'll change it to toggle. Oh, it says on. It is on. If I change it to off. It came back with a no. So I wonder if this is the same thing that David was talking about with like original sound. Is it's not the script clearly came back and says is playtime on, and I have it set to off, and it returned a no, it's not on, to where if I turn it on and run the script, then it's returning a yes, but the client interface is not updating. I don't know if I can make that update or not. If I remove the participants window and re-add it. Turn it off. Run it. It says it's not on. And go back to the client, ZoomCuts client. It shows that it's on, although it returned off. I'm going to now close the participants window and reopen it, thinking that might refresh the status, but it didn't. Okay. Oh, well. That's what this time's all about, is dinking around with this stuff and providing. I mean, the important part is to provide them feedback, things that are not working or not working as expected or not there at all as an option, So
I know Adam from his ATEM multi Apple app. I'm trying to remember what the actual app was called, but yeah, Adam was very responsive in doing all kinds of modifications for that prior to him joining Zoom, which I don't know if he's still doing that ATEM app or not.
Oh yeah, he's still making improvements and changes to it.
Okay.
Yeah. Here, I'll actually let's put a tail on this, and I'll be right back.
All right.